So welcome back. Happy New Year on this beautiful January the 13th, 2022. I haven't done a video since I covered that stinker of a pay-per-view, Luis Ortiz versus Charles Martin. But to start the year off right, we're going to start with some Australian boxing for the next 45 minutes to an hour or so. Strictly break down everything from all the guys you should be looking at, starting with the Maloneys in men's boxing from 115, 118, all the way up to heavyweight Dempsey McKean, all the guys that are in line for title shots. Guys like Tim Tszyu, Liam Paro's approaching the title shot. And of course, at the end of the video, we'll talk about what's next and what we theorize it's going to be the play-in for George Kambosos and the Zone in Australia. We can't go on without mentioning guys like Mick Zaratha, who I'm still upset with that he blew the chance to fight Tim Tszyu, a fight that I feel, me and Big J, my colleague who we have on the line, by the way, I feel that could have been the fight that Mick Zaratha would have had a chance in. We also have to talk about here, I got my, trying to be professional here, we got our show notes. The women's boxing. Ebony Bridges, Susie Q, Ramadan, Shanika Johnson. That's her name, right? Shanika Johnson, Big J?
That is correct, Shanika Johnson.
Yeah, Sonny Bill Williams is returning against a Barry Hall. Big J will help explain that. Paul Gallen's shit show pay-per-view, which I actually did get a chance to watch the main event. And Billy Dibb versus a Jacob NG. That's his name, right? Let me pull this guy up here. And then
that's correct, Jacob NG.
Yeah, and what other topics am I missing? And of course, guys like Justice Haney, heavyweight prospect. A lot of Australian boxing. Australia is in a very good place right now in combat sports, but in this case, we're going to talk about boxing with so many guys, lined up for potential title shots in the future, budding prospects, even the Tim Tszyu wave that's going on right now. And me personally, I'm really interested in what Eddie Hearn in Matchroom is going to do with heavyweight contender Dempsey McKean. So, Jay, I guess we'll start with what's going on with Mick Zerafa versus Isaac Hardman. I have the rankings pulled up here, and Mick Zerafa is still ranked at 160 pounds by the WBA at number 8. And Isaac Hardman is the WBO, let me pull this up on the screen here, WBO number 10 at 160 pounds. So the good thing is this is a ranked fight. Oh, and also Isaac Hardman is ranked at number 15 as well by the IBF. So he's ranked by 2 sanctioning bodies. And Mick Zerafa at 160 is ranked by the WBA at number 8, and let me go check at 154 to see if Mick Zerafa is still ranked anywhere. Not by the WBC, not by the WBA because he's ranked at 160, not by the IBF or the WBO. So this is a ranked fight. So, people can't say that it doesn't really mean anything, but what are your thoughts on the fight overall?
Well, first of all, Happy New Year. Hope everyone's doing over there. Aussie, Aussie, Aussie. Oi, oi, oi. Yeah, I like this fight. Mick is the current WBA Oceanic title holder, where Isaac has the WBO Oriental, and I believe the IBF Australasian.
So basically, those are the titles that give them both their rankings. In the when you hear about those underling titles like that, those are the titles that guarantee you a ranking in the division in the sanctioning body that they're in. So Isaac Hartman is 12-0 with 10 KOs. He is, looking at his box rec, a natural 160 pounder and has fought as high as 173.5 pounds back in 2019. So he's been a pro since 2017. He is 25 years old. Michael Zerafa, 29-4 with 18 KOs. He is 29 years old. His last fight was in December. He got a 4th round TKO over a Silavini Naiwa in the Melbourne Pavilion. And before, of course, that first round brutal stoppage of Anthony Mundine. Notable fights: Jeff Horn twice, Kell Brook, in which me personally, going back, I believe I had him winning that fight or getting a draw. And here in the States, he got knocked out in the 5th round by Peter Quillen. Those are his significant fights. The fight between him and Isaac Hardman here is listed on BoxRec to take place on April the 27th of 2022. So, what have you been hearing about this fight? Where are we at? What's the public's feeling on this fight? And is it going to be a pay-per-view main event, mainstream Australian pay-per-view over there in Australia?
Do not know that yet to confirm, but I believe that since it's on a Wednesday, the chances of it is pretty good. So because we've got this new thing now, I've just learnt this. We'll talk about this later, but the Sonny Bill versus Barry Hall is happening in March, and it's on a new pay-per-view platform called Stan. Stan's a streaming service that's breaking into sport, so that's going to be on pay-per-view on a different platform's main event on a Wednesday night. So
can you spell that? Is that I'm pulling it up for the fans. That's Stan, STAN.
Yep, it's a streaming service in Australia, sort of similar to Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be on pay-per-view. Being on Wednesday, probably chances are. Main event, I mean, from what I've been hearing, they're still not very happy with what happened over the Tim Tszyu thing, and obviously, there's a lot of anger there, and rightfully so.
For Nick Zerafa, can you explain that a little bit in brief detail for the fans who are just hearing about it for the first time?
Well, basically, he was scheduled to fight Tim Tszyu in July of last year and pulled out the week of the fight. There was the concerns with COVID that he couldn't take all of his team there because they'd have to quarantine. They'd have to return to Victoria under a 2-week quarantine, which at the time of the actual fight wasn't the case. There was no requirement to quarantine when they got back. But I'm not going to get into that. But basically, they pulled out a week before because they were worried that they'd have to do 2-week quarantines. It was all a COVID thing, but
and I remember
anyway, that
Mick was getting a lot of heat, on social media, and basically he took the blame.
Yeah, he's still getting a lot of heat now. There's a lot of people that want to see Mick get smashed over the Tim Tszyu thing, but people that know Australian boxing, or know boxing in general, know that Mick has got it all over Isaac Hartman, and Isaac Hartman's in all sorts of trouble. I mean, he's barely a fringe contender, and Mick's far too experienced and can take a punch, which he proved in the Jeff Horn second fight, that he can take a punch, get back up and keep going, and he can dish out the punishment. So I'm really looking forward to this. I mean, in reality, it's really a no-win situation for Mick, because beating Isaac Hartman's really not going to do anything for him, because Isaac's barely on the radar. He's got a couple of regional titles. He's only 12 fights in, so I don't think anyone's going to be looking at it, especially in the middleweight division, which is, one of the most stacked divisions in boxing. So, I mean, no one's kicking down the door to fight Isaac Hartman. If Isaac wins, it's
nice, solid scalp.
Exactly, it's beginning the end for Mick, because if Mick loses to Isaac, that's I mean, Mick, to be honest, Mick's career is already circling the drain. If he loses this, he's just going to keep on going further down. But I think, honestly, he's got to, I don't think, he's far too experienced for Isaac, far too experienced.
So how do you feel, do we feel or think that the Tim Tszyu fight could possibly be revisited? Me personally, I don't think so, because of where Tim Tszyu is and approaching a title shot. But it's still not looking like Tim Tszyu may get his title shot unless it's for a vacant title, not for at least maybe the end of this year or even in 2023 first quarter. So, with the way things are looking, do you think, in your personal opinion, that it's possible for Mick to get another shot at Tim Tszyu?
No, I don't think so. But
I don't think so either. It doesn't make sense.
I mean, we all thought Mundine Green 2 would never happen, and it happened 11 years after the fact. Mm-hmm. So you can't ever say no. I mean, while they're still boxing, you can say yeah, but the chances of it happening are very, very slim. And like I said, when they first fought, there's nothing in it for Tim Tszyu to fight Mick Zerafa. He's not ranked at 154. There's no benefit to either guy, really. There never was. So There's no. I don't think that. They'll probably go down as the greatest fight of this generation that never happened. So, you know, what else can you do?
All right. Well, once again, that fight's going to be taking place on April the 27th. Right now, we don't know what broadcaster in the oceanic area it's going to be televised, and here in the States for the fans who care. You know, if I knew, I would tell you. But right now, if it's not going to be the Zone, I don't see an ESPN Plus. I don't see, of course, not a Showtime, you know, picking it up. You know, so don't be surprised if we get no televised coverage here in the States for that fight. And then when it does get a press conference and more information on if it's going to be pay-per-view or not over in Australian boxing, I can guarantee you that me and Big J will do a video talking about it and likely stream the press conference when it happens, which should be happening, you know, sometime in the next several weeks since the fight is in April. So we're going to move on, and we are going to talk about what's next for the Moloney twins, since when you look at the rankings of men's boxing, starting at 115 pounds, that's where there's no notable names below 115 in Australian boxing, right? It starts with Andrew Moloney, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, Australian boxing traditionally starts around bantamweight and goes up. We don't really have anyone lower than that, but Andrew's 115. Same with the girls; it's around the 115, and then we go up from there.
Got you.
So
Andrew Moloney is 22-2 with 14 KOs. He just got a win in a few weeks ago against Frolian Saludar in the Star Event Center in Sydney. What were your thoughts on that fight? Now, this is after the 3 fights with Joshua Franco. The first fight, unanimous decision loss. The second fight, you know, the controversy with the cut that was ruled a no decision. And then the third fight in which he clearly lost. So he needed a win, you know, to get a confidence builder back. If you don't know, both of the Moloney brothers are top-ranked fighters. And, you know, did you see any clips of his last fight? How did he look? And basically, it just was, I mean, he got a unanimous decision. You know, were fans, you know, impressed that they want him to get a knockout? How did that go for him?
It was a good, solid win. I think he did need a knockout, but it was a good, you know, it wasn't a barn burner, but it was a good win. You know, get the confidence back, get the cobwebs out, move on from the Franco thing. So it was a good win, but you know, it certainly wasn't a highlight reel fight. You know, it wasn't fight of the night or anything. So it was a good win. Getting back into the rankings with the WBO, and he's going after the Japanese champion now. That's his main focus now. Yeah.
Let's talk about the champions at the division. Andrew Moloney competes at super flyweight, 115 pounds. Here are the champions currently in the division. Juan Francisco Estrada, WBC, WBA, and Ring Magazine champion. He is going to be taking on Roman Gonzalez. That date is now set. I believe it's March the 5th. You know, in fact, while we're here right now, let me tell you exactly when that is going to happen. The other champions, German Cajas, IBF, he's got a fight coming up very soon. And WBO, Kazuto Iyoko, who also fought a few weeks ago, is the WBO champion. So he's targeting the Japanese champion in Ioka, but looking in the division, he's ranked number 13 by the WBO. So he would be looking that Ioka would choose him as a voluntary because he's not the mandatory. And looking at guys like Rungvisai, who's number 1, Donny Nietes, who's number 2, who I covered his last fight, by the way. I don't think that Andrew Moloney beats either of those guys. Yes, Gonzalez versus Estrada 3 or Estrada versus Gonzalez 3 is going to be on March the 5th in San Diego on the Zone. And over in Australia, I'm pretty sure you guys are going to get it on the Zone over there too. So right now, we're like, you know, Moloney, Andrew's ranked number 10 by the WBC, number 6 by the WBA. He is not ranked by the IBF, and he's ranked number 13 by the WBO. Now, where he is right now, do you believe that, you know, they should take him, like slow him down a little bit? You know, because one more loss, like, you know, he's done. I mean, well, he is 30, not 31 years old, so you really can't slow him down too much. But ideally, what do you want for Andrew Moloney? Because right now, I don't think that he can beat Ioka. Ioka could be somewhat up and down in his fights, you know, look beatable, but I don't think that Moloney can do it. Andrew can do it.
Yeah. Well, I think he needs one more fight with another ranked contender around who is number 6 or so. And then go after the champion. But as I said, he's got to keep, because they've just turned 31. Both those boys had their birthday on the 10th, so happy birthday to both those blokes. They can't slow him down because he's getting. Yeah, not at 31. Even though Estrada and Chocolatito, I mean, what are those guys? Those guys are pushing 40. So, yeah, it's you can't slow down at this stage of their career.
They're in their 30s too. They're not that old. For example, Juan Francisco Estrada is the same age, 31 years old.
Oh, okay. I thought he was older than that. Chocolatito, how old is Chocolatito?
Hold on, I'm pulling it up right now. Chocolatito is 34 years old, so he's getting up there, especially for those lower weight divisions. He's definitely up there.
Yeah. So they're starting to get up there. So there's no time to muck around. He's got to get another high-ranked fight and then go after the champion. So I think the WBO champ is the way to go because he won't get Estrada or Chocolatito because they'll just keep on going to and fro.
I think,
and he won't get.
Go ahead.
Because of politics, he won't get Encajas. He won't get Jaron Encajas. He's PBC, so that'll never happen. So he's got to go that WBO route. Right,
and
WBO
by the way,
route.
Joshua Franco has to fight the winner of Estrada versus Gonzalez to unify those WBA belts. He's the mandatory. Me personally, I think he should spend 2022, you know, building himself for a mandatory shot or an eliminator by the end of this year or early next year and focus on the title shot, you know, in the spring or summer. Because right now, looking at the division, you know, you got some pretty hard hitters in there. And also, viewers, take your time out, like the video, subscribe down below in the description box. And of course, up at the top of the screen, you can see my social media information on our website, FightView360.com, where our rankings are updated in accordance monthly by our colleague, Mikey. With the WBC, WBA, IBF, WBO, and Ring Magazine champion, women's rankings are coming soon. Also, down below is a link to the WBC app powered by the Vive Network. You can download it for Roku, Apple, Android. And be sure to follow me on Twitter at TstreeT Controversy and Big J at Old Mate Big J on Twitter. And take your time out, like the video, subscribe. So looking at the guys at 115 pounds for Andrew, you know, in order for him to get a title shot, you know, or an eliminator, he may have to go through guys like Nietes, Rungvisai, you know, Francisco Rodriguez Jr. You know, one fight that I think he should look into is a fight with Norberto Jimenez, who fought Danny Nietes at the end of 2021. And I think that'd be a nice barometer to fight either of those guys, you know, or even a Carlos Calderas, you know, whatever happens between him and Rungvisai, who I've heard that are supposed to be fighting next. You even got Kosi Tanaka. It's a tough division. You know, has there been any talk of him possibly moving up before we move on to 118 and Jason Maloney?
No, I spoke to Andrew.
So no weight issues.
Times.
He's comfortable at the weight.
No, he says that he's comfortable at 115 for the rest of his career at this stage. Things might change. I mean, both those Maloney brothers started at 122, so they've dropped down. But no, I don't believe. From the times I've spoken to him, he's pretty clear that he's happy to stay at 115 for the remainder of his career. So.
Okay, now moving on to the other brother. And then remember, we're going by rankings with the Australian boxers. So right now, at 118 pounds, Jason Maloney is the only significant Australian fighter, correct, in men's boxing?
Yeah, that's correct. Yes.
Yeah, so
definitely men's boxing and women's is a totally different story. But men's,
we're going to talk about the women after our break. You know, after we talk about Andrew Moloney. For us, we're taking a break, but for you guys, it'll be just a millisecond. You know, just a sweet scene switch. But yeah, Jason Maloney, In my personal opinion, the better, more tested of the Moloney brothers. Jason Moloney, 22-2 with 18 KOs. He's been stopped once. His last fight was in a phenomenal win over Joshua Greer Jr. He had that tough, even though he got beat up and stopped by Naoya Inoue, the unified 118-pound champion. Significant fight back in the World Boxing Super Series tournament, in which I covered the entire tournament, every single fight. He fought Manny Rodriguez, lost a split decision to that. Once again, remind me, my memory is shit. I've put that out there many times on the channel, but it says split decision. Remind me, even though I did the video, was Jason supposed to win that fight, or did he lose that fight?
He came within a hair's breadth of winning that fight.
Got you.
Very close.
I remember. Yeah, so he did, but did he lose in the fans' eyes?
No, it's more of a 50-50 thing. Yeah, it's like, he didn't do enough. Yeah, it's like, he came so close to winning, but it's like, it was like, he came so close. That was the general consensus. He came so close. So. It was. I don't think it was an uproar from the fans, because I dare say probably very few in Australia actually knew what was happening. So, I've seen it a couple of times. I'm like, he just lost. Okay. So, but it was a very, very narrow loss. So.
Now, the champions in the division, Nonito Donaire, the WBC champion after defeating his mandatory Raymark Ballo. Inoue is the WBA and IBF, and John Real Casimiro, who was supposed to fight Paul Butler about a month and a half back, pulled out because of pretty much weight issues. There's some controversy there, but he still has to fight his mandatory Paul Butler. Inoue, we don't know what's going on with him. And right now, Jason Moloney is ranked number 2 by the WBC. WBA, he is ranked number 12 by the WBA, number 11 by the IBF, and he is number 3 by the WBO. So what route is he going to take? Have you heard anything on, what does he want next? Because there's a good chance that he could be fighting in an eliminator to be the next WBC mandatory against him. Now, let me not butcher this guy's name, but I'm likely going to butcher, no disrespect, guys. Nawafon Kaikanha. That's the best way I can say it. That's the syllables. Have you heard anything about that? And also in the WBO, he only has Rashid Warren ahead of him. So it looks like one of those guys they're going to be ordered to fight each other sometime in the next, I'm going to say 3 to 6 months or so. But have you heard anything on a potential next fight?
Yeah. Andrew told me last time I spoke to him that, and I've heard it more than once. I'm pretty sure I've heard it.
It's going to be the Thailand
grapevine. Yeah, it's going to be the Thailand bloke. His record is 51-1. It's going to be an eliminator to become the mandatory for Nito Donaire. Jason's fighting the Thailand bloke. So
there you go.
The number 1 contender. Yep. So that is not official yet, but that's in the pipeline, and that will be happening pretty soon. I think Jason can get over this bloke, because if you look at this
I have it pulled up.
phone. His record, is 51-1, but actually look at the records of the guys that he's fought.
Yeah, Nawafon Kaikanha. Okay, I can pronounce that. He's 30 years old. And looking at his resume, the last guy he fought in April of 2021 was 5-5-1. In November of 2020, these are the opponent's records: 10-10. 2020, one fight, 6-2. 2019, a guy who's 0-2. 2019, 9-1. Yeah, it's bad. It's ugly. It gets uglier the further you go down.
It's a padded record full of journeymen. So,
and that's a lot. That's how a lot of these Thailand fighters' records look.
And remember, Thailand fighters, Thailand guys are Muay Thai kickboxers. They're not really big on boxing. Yeah. So, I mean, so I don't think Jason should have any dramas with this guy, considering the competition that Jason's fought, and this guy's just fighting padded guys, guys with terrible records. So, yeah, how that guy got the number 1 contender? I don't think he's fought anyone in the top 15 WBC, has he?
Nope.
I don't think so.
Nope.
So how the hell how the fuck he's number 1 contender is beyond me.
Yeah, that's some finesse right
anyway,
there. So have you heard anything about a date?
no, I haven't. I'll give the Maloney brothers a ring, but I think I haven't. I'm not going to speculate. I haven't, but it'll probably be happening within the next 2 or 3 months.
And
So,
and do you think they would bring him over here to the States for a top rank show since it's an eliminator, or do you think that they're going to give him a homecoming fight, make this over there?
I don't know. I mean, there's plenty of opportunities, with the Barry Hall, Sonny Bill fights promoted by Danny Green, which was the last time the Maloney brothers fought in Australia, was on a Danny Green card. That's possible because that's happening, sometime in March. I don't know which way they're going to go. It's not a headline fight, that's for sure, but they can throw it on. It's a nice little undercard fight.
Yeah, the Barry Hall Sonny Bill, according to Fox Sports Australia, is supposed to take place on March the 23rd.
Yep, that's it. Yep, March the 23rd. So, and that is promoted by Danny Green. So that's a nice little, they can throw that under there, a nice little undercard fight. But I haven't had any details yet. But one would think that's going to be happening pretty soon, considering that's only a little over 2 months, about 10 weeks away.
Yeah.
So, but we'll see what happens. But I think Jason shouldn't have any dramas beating this Thailand bloke and getting the number one contendership and fighting Donaire, September, October of this year?
Well, looking at the rankings, Donaire is really still trying to fight Casemiro, but Casemiro has to fight his mandatory obligation. There's a contract, and the WBO has put their foot down saying that fight has to happen. Now, unless Donaire fights Inoue, which right now it looks like Donaire doesn't want to fight Inoue. Like, it looks like they've been, and there is a political divide there with Inoue, with the, Japanese restrictions, and that, he's a top ranked fighter. Donaire and Casemiro are both now new promotional organization, Pro Bellum, led by Richard Schaefer, fighters, previously Showtime fighters. But looking at it, if Jason Maloney was to, I don't. It's hard for me to see the title shot being this year. If it is, I mean, it'll have to be at the very end, or
It'll be
quarter next year.
It'll be at the arse end of the
At the very end of the year, like December end of the year. No sooner than that. All right, so we're going to take a little break. For us, it's a little break, but for you, we'll just be right back in, less than a millisecond. Take your time out, like the video, subscribe. Also, our shadow ban on YouTube is going to be up in less than 15 days. If you haven't noticed, numbers have been a little down here. I did a video a few years back that YouTube didn't take too kindly to, so they took it down. And when you're shadow banned, it limits your reach in the algorithm, and they start doing real funky stuff to make sure, basically your channel's on probation. They don't push it out there in case you say something else that they don't like. But that's going to be up soon. So what I'm saying is, you liking the video is very important. It helps us fight through the algorithm issues and push our Australian boxing videos further. Take your time out, like the video, subscribe. All right, see, so that wasn't that bad. We are back. Went over to make sure we're going to hit all of the topics we want to hit in our Australian Boxing Super Show. So next, we're going to talk a little bit about the women boxers in Australia, and Big J will be able to explain that a bit more. He's, taught me about fighters like Shanika Johnson. I've already, had some experience watching and covering Susie Q Ramadan. And of course, for all the simps out there, we can't leave you without talking about Ebony Bridges and what's going to be next with her briefly, because we're going to talk about her later on. So first, what is going on with Susie Q Ramadan, and what division is she at again? What division does she fight in?
115. She fights. She's won, 3 world titles, 3 different divisions. 122, 118, 115. But she's staying at the 115 at the moment. So
yeah, I have her pulled up. But before we continue, she is 28-3 with 12 KOs. How old is she? Do you know?
Oh, she's pushing 43.
She's 42. She's 43 years old. So looking at her box rec, she has a TBA listed here for March the 6th in the Melbourne Pavilion. And before that, she had one fight in 2020 against a Greta DePaz, where she won a unanimous decision. And the last fight before that was one in 2018. So basically, you know, 2 fights that she's had in the last 4 years. So, you know, what's going on with her? What is she trying to do? And why is she not in this renaissance, involved in this renaissance of women's boxing right now?
Well, what's going on with her is that she's ranked, I think, number 2 with the IBF, and she's trying to get her IBF title shot at 115. That's what's been going on now. Those divisions are dominated by Mexican and South American fighters, like most Argentinians, and they either can't get out of the country or they can't get into Australia or whatever. So, and a few political things are going on as well. There's a lot of problems with COVID and stuff. So, but it's nice to see that Susie actually is getting a fight. And of course, everyone knows I think that she's the GOAT. Well, she is the GOAT of Australian women's boxing. There's very little argument about that. But, it's nice to see that she's... I spoke to her, well, it's like past midnight, so I spoke to her yesterday. There was talks about possibly WBF title being on the line for that.
Yeah, but fans are not trying to hear about no WBF title. That's not going to move the needle.
Nah, it's not. That's not going to move. But there's a whole thing of possibilities. But they're going to cement if it's going to be for a title, or they're going to cement an opponent. So, but at least the date's locked in for March 6th that she's going to have a fight. It's a Brian Armatruda show. It's a big time boxing card, and I'm looking forward to it. So, and that's only up the road. So I'm going to make an effort to actually go up there and go out and watch it. So.
Oh, well, there you go. All right, so we'll be paying close attention to that. Now, I have the box rec of Shanika Johnson and Shannon O'Connell pulled up. Shanika Johnson, she is 13-1 with 16 KOs, 26 years old. Her last fight was against Shannon O'Connell, who we're both going to talk about. Split decision loss. She has a fight listed also for April the 27th. I'm guessing that's the Zerafa card?
Correct, yeah, that's the Zerafa.
Against Melissa Esquivel. She is 12-1 with 4 KOs, 27 years old, from Mexico, who fought Erica Cruz Hernandez, who I've covered before. Okay, so, at least she's fighting somebody with a name and a positive record. So how do you feel about Shanika overall as a fighter from what you've seen? Like, is she going to be the future of Australian women's boxing? Like, skill?
Well, she has to prove that in the ring, because remember, she did lose to Shannon O'Connell, who's much more, who's a lot older and a lot more experienced.
Yes. Shannon is 22-6-1 with 10 KOs. She's listed at 38 years old. And she has not lost a fight since she lost to Helen Joseph back in July of 2017.
So, I mean, like, ladies like, Shannon, Susie, and Ebony, they're all in their mid-30s, early 40s. They're starting to wind up. So Shanika can possibly be the future. I'm a little puzzled how she got this title shot. I think, both Susie and Shannon's name were mentioned for this, but I'm glad she's got it. But
I forgot to mention it's for the vacant IBF title.
Super bantamweight, super bantamweight title, 122.
Super bantamweight title.
Yeah, so if she wins, great. That's fantastic. We've got another world champion in our midst. So you can't, fantastic. I hope she gets in there and cracks the Mexican girl and she wins a title. But she has to prove that in the ring. Can she be the future of Australian women's boxing? She has to prove that in the ring.
All right.
So I'm happy that she's got the title shot. I thought Shannon or Susie should have got her name ahead of it, but politics and all that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. But fantastic opportunity for her, and I'm really hope she gets in there and wins, because we need more champions. So we've only got George at the moment. So
yeah. And what about Shannon? What's going on with her? She had her last fight in October of last year. She was actually able to get in 2 fights, one being Shanika and then a Taylor Robertson. Both of those were split decisions.
Yeah. There was no split decision with Taylor Robertson. Shannon just beat her, just outboxed her. There was no if buts or maybes about it's if buts or maybes. Go and watch the tape. It's a shutout. So Shannon has signed with No Limit Boxing, same people that take care of Tim Tszyu. So she'll be appearing on, obviously a lot of Tim Tszyu undercards. Don't know how that's going to go internationally for her with title shots and stuff, considering that, we don't have No Limit has any affiliation with anybody because, all the stuff they've done with Tim Tszyu, which we'll get to, there's no title shots or international talent or whatever going on. So, but I'm interested to see what they plan to do with her. I'm a bit cautious about this, see what exactly are they going to do with her. But, she's going to be on more pay-per-views now, so that's probably always a positive thing, getting women's boxing out there. But I believe she's still the number one contender for the 118 WBA title, which is held by Jamie Mitchell, is it?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, and that would be a hell of a fight. I think Shane would get her. So, but whether or not that fight actually happens or not, considering she's not with Lou DiBella, Brian Cohen, or Eddie, I don't know. I don't think so. So we'll see what happens.
All right.
I mean, by rights, she should have the title shot, but whether or not she actually gets it is another story.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think she would get over Jamie Mitchell.
Another fight that you brought to my attention was Billy Dibb. He's actually fighting a ranked contender in the Jacob NG. Billy Dibb, 47-6 with 27 KOs. Notable fights. A couple of years ago, I covered a few years ago when he fought Amir Khan, and from my understanding, didn't he retire after that? I believe he did.
Nah, he retired after the Devin Farmer fight in 2018, which he lost, and then he was retired for like 6 months. Yeah, then he came back and had the 4-round play fight with Amir Khan, and he's had a few other fights, like a kickboxer switchover and a few other guys.
So, but now this is supposed to be like a serious attempt at a return. He's 36 years old, by the way. That has to be mentioned. 40, with 6 losses, been stopped 3 times. This Jacob NG guy, Australian also, 15-0 with 11 KOs. This fight is taking place at 135 pounds, because that's where Jacob NG is ranked. And on NG's record, since he's only fought in Australia, according to BoxRec, there's no opponents of note that I know of. I've seen Jacob NG in the rankings for quite some time now, but how do you rank him as a fighter? Have you seen anything on him? He's ranked number 9 by the IBF only. Oh, and number 6 by the WBO.
I've seen him fight a couple of times, and he's got dropped a couple of times. And against Hunter, I can't pronounce his last name, he got dropped, in like the first 30 seconds of that fight. It looked like he got knocked out. He got back up, but his defense is awful, and his chin is questionable. I mean, I don't see him being anything, special. He's a bit of a show pony. He comes out with this feather-looking thing that sort of like Hulk Hogan wears and does a bit of a dance to the ring. But skill-wise, I don't think he's going to get very far. I mean, if he does get to that level, if he goes overseas, he comes up against a decent fighter, he'll get destroyed. So, I mean, he's in a no-win situation fighting Billy Dibb, because if he wins, he beats an over-the-hill blown-up featherweight, because as we know, Billy Dibb is a former IBF featherweight world champion. But Billy Dibb hasn't been a champion for damn near a decade. So, and if he loses, then he loses all credibility, because he lost to a over-the-hill blown-up featherweight. So it's a no-win situation for him. Yeah,
and that's supposed to be taking place on March the 19th. So far, no network date listed.
What day is that?
March 19th. So I'm guessing that, they'll probably pick it up maybe on a Fox Sports over there or something.
It depends what day it actually is.
Highly unlikely we'll get any type of, I'm pretty much going to say right now, we're not going to get no television coverage here in the States on this, but I will be paying attention to the fight. Now, to move on, let's give some quick hits to guys like Liam Parrow, Brock Jarvis, and Dempsey McKee. So what's going on with Liam Parrow right now? Let's start with him. Let me pull his box rec up.
He was on the Jake Paul undercard. Jake Paul Tom Woodley undercard.
And now he's just signed with Eddie Hearn, correct?
Correct, yep. He signed with Eddie Hearn. So both Dempsey McKee, Liam Parrow, and Brock Jarvis all signed with Eddie Hearn, and along with, Sky Nicholson is also in there as well. So she's also signed with Eddie Hearn, and she'll be doing her debut at some point this year.
Yeah.
She was a Olympic amateur that switched over.
Liam Parrow's record is 22-0 with 13 KOs. He is 25 years old. Last fight on the Jake Paul Teron Woodley 2 undercard, where he fought a Yilmar Alamo, got a split decision. No, he won that fight though, didn't he?
He did, but I'll say this. All Dempsey, Brock, and Liam all had their debuts on the zone and in America, and all three of them looked like shit.
Lackluster, yeah. It didn't look good. Yeah.
All three of them looked like absolute shit because Brock almost got his fucking clock cleaned. He was dead on his feet by the second round. He was. Yeah. I thought, oh god, here we go. He's going to get destroyed, but he pulled through. To his credit, he pulled through. Liam got knocked on his ass in the first round of that fight against the Puerto Rican fella, so that's not a good look. And Dempsey took 6 rounds to knock out someone he should have knocked out in 2.
Yeah,
so the bloke that he fought was on a 4-fight losing streak.
And Liam's in a tough division. Yeah. Right now, he is not ranked by the WBC or the WBA, he is ranked by the IBF and the WBO, both at number 3. The champions, of course, Josh Taylor is the champion at 140 pounds. Gervonta Tank Davis is holding on to that 140-pound world title. He's going to have to decide soon if he's going to keep that. Big names in the division, guys like Sabril Matias, Arnold Barboza. Now, these are both guys that are ranked at number 2 in the IBF and WBO above Liam Parrow. And I'm going to tell you right now, from what I've seen, Arnold Barboza Jr. would start him, and Sabril Matias would probably start him. So, they need to be really, really careful with them. And since he's a new signing to Matchroom Eddie Hearn, and he's still got some youth with him, I expect for them to probably dial him back a little bit because, maybe get him 1 fight, probably 2, before they really call for an eliminator, because right now ranked at number 3 by both of those sanctioning bodies, he's definitely going to be called up for a title shot soon. Now to move on, Brock Jarvis watched his last fight and he looked like shit. Who's his trainer again? Jeff Finnick, right?
Jeff Finnick, that's correct. Jeff Finnick.
Yeah, he didn't look good.
No, to be almost knocked out cold by let's be honest here, a Mexican journeyman, no disrespect to the bloke that fought him, that didn't look good at all. And this is the thing with Australian boxing, and this is the reason why a lot of them, especially George Kambosos, he said this, that's why he goes overseas to train, because the talent pool in Australia is just not there.
Yeah.
And the proof is in the pudding. Once these Australian boxers, they fight all these, guys in Australia, they fight all these, Southeast Asian taxi drivers and prop up their records with fighting guys that have terrible records. They go over to the States, they fight someone half decent, and they get the shit kicked out of them. Mm-hmm. And Brock has a long list of people, of Australian fighters who've gone overseas, and they just get destroyed. Okay, yeah, he pulled through, he won, but I mean, in all honesty, if that was in Australia, that fight would have got stopped.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, and the crazy thing is, he's 20-0 with 18 KOs, so his resume looks menacing. Until you start going to the meat of things, to where you see that he didn't fight somebody with a positive record until 10 or so fights in, and that guy was 20-19.
That's the thing. Yeah,
and he's ranked at one. I mean, he's a 135-pound fighter, by the way. As well. Very, very tough division. Let me check real quick to see if he's ranked at 135. No, he is not.
Somewhere in the. He's ranked at 126 with the IBF, but he hasn't fought 120, and he's not going back there, I don't think.
Yeah, he's not going back into that division. He's huge.
Yeah, exactly. So he ain't gonna go down there anytime soon.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Next one, Dempsey McKee. 20-0.
Dibb.
New signing, as you said, to Matchroom. He's done some commentary for some shows on the Zone. He's 31 years old, listed at 6'6", and you're always telling me how pissed off you are that Lucas Brown pulled out of the fight with him.
Oh, yeah, I'm still pissed about that because Dempsey would have destroyed Lucas probably quicker than what Paul Gallen did. So, but Dempsey McKean, he's got a lot to prove. I said his debut didn't look good. He should have knocked out that bloke inside of 2 rounds and took 6. So, yeah, there's a lot of work there. And like another one, only fought Australian talent or overseas low-level guys, I think he fought Jonathan Rice there at one stage.
Yeah, he fought Jonathan Rice, and Jonathan Rice fought Michael Coffey again on a pay-per-view, nonetheless. So that's crazy right there that actually happened. So yeah, the last guy he fought when he didn't look good on the Demetrius Andrade versus Jason Quigley card was Don Hainsworth. That was in November of 2021. He got a 6-round TKO stoppage. And yeah, another Aussie who in their American debut did not look good. That's 3 straight now. That was 3 straight. Brock, him, and Brock, Liam, and Dempsey.
That's correct, yeah.
And all 3 Matchroom signings. Huh, look at that.
Yeah. They all look, but they've got the wins and they're just going to improve. So we're not saying that it's all shit. They're all terrible. No, they just
and also
look
it was their first fight over here. It could be the jitters, but that's just a crazy stat that all 3 of them didn't look good.
Well, as I said, Australians in general have a shithouse record in America. Fucking terrible. Fucking terrible. Daniel Lewis fought Sebastian Vendora on the Wilder Fury 2 card, hasn't been seen since. So there's a lot of Australians that go overseas. Daniel Gill lost his IBF middleweight title in America. There's a lot of Americans. Horn got the shit kicked out of him. He fought Crawford, but you get the point. Australians don't do very well in general in America. Andrew Maloney got screwed. His twin brother got knocked out. So, the general thing is that Australians don't do very well in America. So, but anyway, who's next? Who's up next?
Lucas Brown.
Lucas Brown. Oh, Lucas Brown.
Lucas Brown. 30. Surprisingly, he's I thought it was more, but he only has 3 defeats. 30-3 with 26 KOs, listed at 6'5", 42 years old. Last fight was against a Figa Upalu. He got a 7th round KO.
Yeah, Django. They just call him Django Opolu. Django Opolu.
There you go. And then before that, he was sparked out brutally by Paul Gallen, a rugby player, by the way, footballer. In 1 round, Dave Allen, he was knocked out by him. And of course, Dylan White also put him to sleep. But you've been lobbying for him to possibly fight Derek Chisora. And I think Derek Chisora would put him to sleep too. It's funny how he's still relevant out here.
He would. Lucas Brown, to his credit, he knocked out Django Opolu there. For 2 seconds. Django Opolu was no slouch. Skill-wise, Justice Haney beat him in his debut. Completely outclassed him. But Django Opolu is a hard bugger, and Lucas Brown knocked him out cold. Lucas Brown was taking punishment in that fight. You thought, Lucas is just going to get damn near killed here. But to his credit, he knocked him out. It was pretty brutal. The knockout was he was flat on his back out. But Jeff Fennick wasn't commentary, and I agree with what he said. The WBA Oceanic title was on the line, and neither of those guys should have been fighting for that title. But Lucas has got a title now, and Derek Chisora, who's in the same situation pretty much as Lucas is at the end of his run, he's never going to be a world champion again. There's no real
it'll be a fun fight.
Fights left for him. Sorry?
It'll be a fun fight.
Yeah, exactly. It would be a fun fight. And it would have to happen in the UK. Australia would not give 2 shits about it. So it has to happen. And Lucas has fought in the UK many, many times. Yeah. So, and I think it would be one last moment in the sun for both blokes, and then they should both go home, because what are they going to do after that? So,
all right, yeah. Well, since we're short on time, three more topics left. We're going to talk about next Jai Opetaia and what's going on with him and Mairis Briedis, if you don't know. And then we're going to talk about Tim Tszyu, of course, and George Kambosos on the zone. What's next for them? If you don't know, Mairis Briedis, former WBC cruiserweight champion, you know, and he fought Usyk for undisputed in the World Boxing Super Series final a few years back. He is now the IBF champion and the Ring Magazine champion at cruiserweight. His mandatory is Jai Opetaia, but Mairis Briedis has got a Jake Paul tattoo. Here, let me pull this up for you. He's got a Jake Paul tattoo, and he's been putting out promos lobbying for the Jake Paul fight. Now, he's not going to get it, but that goes to show you, like, the state that boxing is right now, where you have fighters mutilating their bodies to try to get a payday. Now, here's the champions at cruiserweight right now. A younger Makabu who's going to be fighting to Biso Machunu. That's supposed to be taking place in a couple of weeks. It's a Don King promotion. Many in media feel that fight's not going to happen. And then Canelo wants to fight that winner, but it's looking like Canelo's going to fight Charlo in May, but that's a whole different video. WBA super champion Urslan's Gulamarian. You have Lawrence O'Colly, who's going to be fighting likely Michael Cieslak. Next, he's the WBO champion. He's been lobbying for the Briedis fight. But it's looking like Briedis and Opetaia may be happening in Australia. Any thoughts, and what have you heard?
Well, I've heard that Opetaia's promoter, Dean Logan, is saying that fight is going to happen in Australia around March sometime. I mean, March is not that far away. So I'm excited to hear what's going to happen, but with restrictions, it won't happen in Queensland because their borders are still shut internationally. So it'll have to happen in probably New South Wales. But with all the COVID cases and whatever's going on, there might be lockdowns, there might not be. I don't know. But I'm very excited for this fight. But I'm very cautious because Jai Opetaia has virtually zero record against any international opponent, and I don't think he's ever fought anyone in the actual top 15.
Yeah, let me read off his record. He's 21-0 with 17 KOs, 26 years old, 6'3", fighting in a cruiserweight division. That's a 200-pound limit. The highest he's ever fought was 217 pounds back in 2017. So looking at his resume, nope, there's no top 15 challengers or any name of anyone that I know of. He's been pro since 2015, by the way. So going in, Mairis Briedis is a very, very good fighter. And, just going out there to say it, I'm going to have to roll with Mairis Briedis to win the fight.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the only real person of note that Jai Opetaia's fought is Mark Bam Bam Flanagan, two-time, I think, world title contender. But that's it. And Mark's still fighting. He's just had a fight for the Australian cruiserweight title and lost it. I thought he won it, but anyway. But yeah, I mean, as I said, there's another Australian who's having a world title fight that's had zero experience with anyone overseas or ranked in the top 15. So, yeah, it could be a bad night for Jai. I mean, he's got to prove in the ring, but based on his record, it probably could be an easy night for Briedis. So, what was his last fight, like 4 rounds or something? Knocked the guy out in 4 rounds?
He knocked him out in 3. Daniel Russell. He was 7-2-2 coming in.
No, Briedis' last fight, not Jai's. Briedis.
Oh, Briedis' last fight. Let's see. I got his tattoo up on the screen that he got. Hold on, let me pull it up.
Because I think he's a long established. I mean, he's been IBF champ for a while, hasn't he?
Yeah, COVID messed up a lot of things too. His last fight was against Hartman. He stopped him in 3. Before that, Junior Dorticos, which a fight I covered, and then Glowacki, also a fight I've covered. So one fight, basically, he's had one fight 2019, one fight 2020, one fight 2021. But 2 of his last 3 have been significant fights against top guys and former champions.
Yeah. And
then, of course, he fought Alexander Usyk, Mike Perez, Marco Huck, even Manuel Charlo at heavyweight. And these are fights, once again, I can't believe I've covered all these fights for all these years. He's no slouch heavyweight, especially to be fighting a Jai Opetaia who's coming off of fighting a guy who was 7-2-2. So of course I am going to go with Mairis Briedis. But wondering though what a TV deal will look like here. I'm pretty sure because Briedis is promoted by the Vasyl brothers. So I'm pretty sure that it would get UK, television, but will it get possibly the zone treatment, in Australia? I'm pretty sure, or they may do main event over there, because
no, they'll definitely do main event.
Yeah,
and definitely because Dean Lonergan has a long established relationship main event, and that will be a main event card. It's already been in the works for that. So yeah, main event will most likely televise that in Australia, without a doubt.
All right, final two topics. Now we got to talk about 154 and what is Tim Tszyu going to be doing next. Now we've been covering Tim Tszyu, for the better part of 2 years now. 20-0 with 15 KOs, 27 years old. The Soul Taker is what he's being called now. Last opponents, Takashi Inoue, looked good to me. Stevie Spark, late step in for Mick Zerafa. Dennis Hogan, long overdue. Fight. Well, basically, a long in the tooth Dennis Hogan, older fighter, but still nonetheless good solid name. Bowen Morgan, as Big J would say, a blown up welterweight. And the only other significant fight was Jeff Horn. So now he is the WBO mandatory, but with the way things are set up, he's not going to be getting a title shot. Now it's looking like to me maybe first quarter, or even by summer of 2023. I thought it would be this year, but if you don't know, Jermall Charlo and Castano are going to be having their rematches all signed, sealed, and delivered. That's going to be taking place in March. No officially a confirmed date yet, but that's also looking like March the 5th, and it's going to be on regular Showtime. But then this is where things get tricky. You have a background Murtazaliev who now I feel, even though we don't know what's going on, is going to be fighting for the IBF interim on the undercard, and he is the next mandatory in line for the winner. So if you have to think, Charlo Castano fight, okay, in March. The mandatory for the IBF is due after that. They fight sometime before the end of the year because these days, for some reason, champions don't fight 3 times a year. And then where does that leave WBO mandatory Tim Tszyu? Not getting this title shot until until March or so of next year. Unless the winner of Charlo Castano vacates. It's kind of complex, but as it stands right now, in my opinion, I don't see a title shot for Tim Tszyu until as Big J said earlier, the ass end of this year. But for me, I'm saying spring 2023. That's what I'm looking at. So in the meantime, he's got to stay busy. Also, Erickson Lubin and Sebastian Fandora are fighting to be the official mandatory for Charlo Castano as well after Tszyu. So how it works is if the winner of Charlo Castano stays at the division, then Murtazaliev gets his shot first. Tim Tszyu after. And the winner of Lubin Fandor after that, if these fighters, of course, keep winning. So in the meantime, Tim Tszyu needs a fight. And who is he going to fight?
Well, if there's any logic to No Limit, they'll just fight Bakram Zalian.
Yeah, but we know that, that would make sense because, he would be able to jump the line while getting a significant name under his belt. But do you believe that they would do it with what you've seen from them so far?
I mean, it's just something about it where they're just so lazy staying in Australia. I mean, they keep on saying they're going overseas, but they don't do it. Mm-hmm. They said they were going to go overseas after Jeff Horn. They've been saying for 2 years, oh, yeah, he's got to stop fighting in Australia. We need to go overseas. Bullshit. Australia, or you fight a blown up welterweight, or you fight Zerafa. It's like you've done everything bar actually what you should do, which is piss off overseas and go fight real competition. Yeah. So, because there's nothing at 154 for him to do in Australia or the Oceanic territory. There's nothing. There's no fighters of any significance.
How long can they keep milking this, keeping him in Australia? And who are they going to get to come over there? So let me explain what's going on with the other guys that are ranked in the division. Magomed Kurbanov and Patrick Teixeira, that fight was postponed. But they have a contract. They are still going to fight. They're looking for another date right now. Liam Smith is going to be fighting Jesse Vargas. That fight just got postponed. That was supposed to be February the 5th. But Jesse Vargas just got COVID. That was announced not even 2 days ago. Right now, it's January the 13th. You got Erickson Lubin, who's number 6 by the WBO, taken up. You got Brandon Adams, Tony Harrison, Carlos Ocampos, Carlos Adames, who, beat Sergey Derevyanchenko. I don't think Carlos Adames would travel over to Australia. You got Sergio Garcia, if that's a possible. And then you got the guys that are at the bottom of the barrel of the rankings at 15, 13, 14, 15, guys like a Hamza, Shariz, Baliz, Baksky, or Dimitro, Mike Trofanov. Now, I think they would choose one of those guys. Why? Is because they'll say, oh, well, it's a ranked contender. That's how they'll try to sell it. But really, realistically, from what I've seen, Bakram Murtazaliev makes sense. But the thing is, I don't think Murtazaliev will go over to Australia. They would say, listen, Tim Tszyu, you come over, fight Murtazaliev on the Charlo Castano undercard. That would make sense. Or even make it its own card. Even though he's old, older now, and I would pick Tim Tszyu, Jack Couquet, Ted Cheeseman. They're going to have to get a name, to keep the momentum going. And right now, the walls are closing in.
Didn't Ted Cheeseman lose his last fight?
He did.
I'm pretty sure he did.
He did, but still, they would pick him, and also, they need a name, though. Okay, take Ted Cheeseman out. They need a name, even if they can still try to get Tony Harrison again.
Tony Harrison, Jack Couquet, because the writing was that he was going to fight in February. I mean, February's only, a couple of weeks away.
And then you said they're looking for a fight in Russia?
Yeah, well, they've been talking along, Kostya wants him to fight in Russia. So, and they've been talking about that for a year now, but I'll believe it when I see it. So I'm not entertaining that until I see. They have
been talking about it for a year. We've been covering it.
Yeah, and his little brother Nikita, I think that's his name, or Nicola.
Mm-hmm.
I can't pronounce his name properly. He's signed with No Limit, and he's turning pro. He's more of a decorated amateur than what Tim does, and he'll start appearing on his brother's undercards. So, but they've also got to factor all that in. So, I'll believe it when I see it. But I saw some footage the other day. Tim Tszyu. Tim Tszyu is going to be. He said he'd fight anybody. And that's the problem. He said he'd fight anyone. He doesn't seem to be focused on who's he going to be fighting.
Okay.
He just goes, I'll just fight anybody. He just feels like he just keeps on fighting anybody until he actually gets this title shot. I think you need to be more focused on, I want this person, I want that person. So just go, I'll just fight anyone. It's like fighting someone for the sake of fighting someone is just ridiculous. You're far too advanced to be doing that now.
Mm-hmm.
You need, I want this guy, I want this guy, I want this guy.
Well, right now, I'm really interested in who he's going to fight. I mean, there's names out there, but now, it's going to be time, for him to travel. Maybe they'll be able to squeeze one more fight out of him in Australia to make some money. But, his promoters are going to have to get with the program. In order for Tim Tszyu to get international exposure, they are going to have to get with another promoter. Whether it's an Eddie Hearn Matchroom, the Zone, a Top Rank, or a PBC.
That's correct. That's exactly what they need.
So since we're really short on time and we're going to have a whole individual video on this, we got to talk about our man George Kambosos and what's going on with him. Current, and I'm going to go ahead and say it, undisputed, unified 135-pound champion, WBC franchise, WBC Super, WBO, and IBF Ring Magazine 135-pound champion, defeated Teofimo Lopez in a shocking upset. And now Teofimo Lopez doesn't want a rematch and, moving on to 140 pounds. So now the names that are circulating are, of course, him and Devin Haney had, my interview together, after Devin Haney defeated his last opponent, Jojo Diaz, 20-0 with 10 KOs, 28 years old. He's home, spending time with his new child, family. Australia, George Kambosos. The options are this. You got Devin Haney, boom, who's willing to go over to Australia. You got Gervonta Tank Davis here in the States, who George Kambosos, if he fights, it will likely be on pay-per-view. You know, you got Lomachenko out there, and a lot of people feel that that's a fight that may be happening, but there's also some rumors circulating around that Lomachenko and Shakur Stevenson may be fighting. And right now, and then you got Ryan Garcia. Now, there's a lot of people who wants to get their hands on George Kambosos, but George Kambosos and his side, the Bella, are making it clear that if this fight happens, it's going to happen in Australia. So right now, who do you want to see George Kambosos fight? Me personally, I want Devin Haney just to end all of this WBC franchise and email champion bullshit. I want it to be Devin Haney.
I agree. I want it to be Devin Haney as well. And the writing's already on the wall. We've mentioned this. Eddie Hearn and the Zone Matchroom Boxing have snapped up a number of Australian talent in the last couple of months. Dempsey McKean, Brock Jarvis, Sky Nicholson, Ebony Bridges have been working with him, Liam Paro. You've got all those guys that will probably appear on an all-Australian card if Kambosos fights Devin Haney in Australia. The writing's already, that's what I think Eddie's ultimate plan is, to have all those fighters on his own card, headlined by Kambosos v Haney for the undisputed lightweight championship.
Yeah, so the Australian fighters that the Zone have now, you know, with Eddie Hearn, it's Kambosos, Dempsey McKean, Liam Paro, Brock Jarvis, Ebony Bridges. He has access to Lucas Brown. Lucas Brown has fought on Matchroom cards before, you know. And am I missing anybody?
Sky Nicholson. She's the Olympian turned pro, so she'll be doing her debut. So,
you know, even if they're lent out from Bob Arum, you know, to fight on the Zone as well, you got the Maloney brothers as well.
So there's an opportunity to have an all-Australian, well-stacked card, you know, on
headlined by Kambosos and Haney.
Yeah, definitely. And that fight would probably most likely be in Sydney, possibly in Melbourne, but I dare say in Sydney. Because, 80,000 people, I just don't see that happening. That's a lot of people.
What do you think the cap is good? What do you think his, you know, how much can they sell? Can they do 30,000?
I think they could do probably more than that. If they promote it well, they could probably do 60.
Mm-hmm.
But they've got to get a stadium that's available, and they've got to do it where they're not really competing against. As I said, they do it in the football season. It's going to be very hard to sell. So, but then again, you know, Pacquiao versus Horn was a football season, but that was Pacquiao. Yeah. So, you know, I mean, you know, it's as I said, it's gonna have to be a long 2-3 month promotion to promote the fight.
Yeah.
Because remember, George is still relatively unknown in Australia. No one cares who Devin Haney is. He's just a bloke that's got the belt. So. And
right now, it's looking like George is going to have to fight in April or May because of, you know, all the obligations to the titles. You know, so we should be hearing something, you know, definitely by February. And of course, promoters and everyone are weary right now and being really careful, you know, because, you know, of COVID. You know, you don't want to schedule a fight and then a fighter, you know, gets sick. You know, we're losing fights left and right, you know, right now here in the States because of COVID, you know, but, you know, I wouldn't be surprised, man, if it's not Devin Haney. I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, PBC and PBC and Al Heyman throw a whole bunch of money at Kambosos. But if you don't know, Kambosos' promoter, Lou DiBella, and PBC had a falling out. So that is interesting right there, you know, in itself. You know, like to see if they can get something done. And then, of course, you have what ESPN and Top Rank would throw in for Kambosos to fight Lomachenko. You know, so either way, I'm going to tell you, I like George Kambosos, but I can't pick him to defeat Lomachenko. However, I can look at Devin Haney because Devin Haney's last couple of fights where they were supposed to be his standout fights, the fights where he was supposed to, you know, show the world who he is against Jojo Diaz and Jorge Linares, he looked average. I like Devin Haney, but I'm not on my way to say that him and Kambosos is not a 50-50 fight. So since we're short on time, we're going to be doing this every 2 weeks. One of our hour-long videos. Is going to be us going through everything Australian boxing. Then 1-2 weeks later is going to be us talking about a specific topic along with everything, mentioned going on in Australian boxing. And we'll see how things go from there. Take your time out, like the video, subscribe if you enjoyed this. Any fighters that you would like us to look out for, or any questions, make sure you post them down below in the comments, and we're going to be going over that stuff in our streams and videos going forward in the future. Also, down below in the description box, take your time out to download the WBC app powered by the Vibe Network, Andrew, Roku, Apple. And yeah, we pretty much went through everything. Jay, your closing thoughts on Kambosos since we're at the end of the show?
Yeah, definitely want to see him fight Devin Haney first, then Lomachenko. I think George could beat Lomachenko because Lomachenko can't really fight off the back foot. If you put the pressure on him, like Lopez did, he runs. So I think George could get him if he does it right. So, I think even though Lomachenko looked good against Comey, at the end of his run, so I think the dominance of Lomachenko is coming to an end. So I think it's all going to be George these days. So I really think the only person that could give him drama would be Tank. But Devin, I don't think he'll have any problem with Devin at all.
Yeah, well, hopefully
Devin
it's Devin, because if it's Devin, then it'll put all to bed all of this. The winner can be the undisputed champion. No other rivals. And for George Kambosos, that would mean a lot for his legacy. But what's more important to him, the legacy or the money? But from all sides, from PBC, from the Zone, Matchroom, from ESPN, I think the money's going to be there regardless.
Yeah, I think, as I said, with Eddie signing all these, we forgot to mention Eddie Bridges, but with all these fighters that Eddie signed up from Australia, it's pretty much on the wall.
Yeah,
what he's going to do. So,
yeah, like you said, he can match it up with the young guys. Liam Parrow put him in a fight. Brock Jarvis put him in a fight. The women put Ebony Bridges on there. If you want to put on a little more show, add Dempsey McKean, and then Kambosos and Devin Haney. And look, you got an all Aussie card right there, to really, really kick off the Zone. They might even raise the price for the Zone over there.
Yeah, maybe, because it's only $3 a month at the moment. So.
Yeah. But I do have to go. It has been nice talking to you guys. We are back full time covering boxing, despite the fact that boxing. Take your time out, like the video, subscribe. This is TstreeT Controversy with Fight View 360.